1. The departure of Saint Bessarion the Great. On this day, the great ascetic father Saint Bessarion departed. He was born in Mesra to Christian parents. When he grew up, he longed for the monastic life, so he went to Anba Antony, under whose direction he remained for a while. Then he went to Anba Macarius and stayed under his guidance for a while. Later on, he wandered about in the desert, whatever lodging in a place with a roof. He possessed absolutely nothing of this world, and he had only one coarse hairy sackcloth. sackcloth. He used to carry the gospel and went round the cells of the monks crying. If they asked him the reason for his weeping, he would reply, "My riches have all been stolen, and I have escaped from death. My family have fallen from honor into disgrace." This was referred to the great loss that befell the human race with the fall of the race of the first father Adam by breaking the first commandment. Those who did not understand what his word meant would console him, saying, "God shall restore what has been stolen from you." The fathers record for him many signs. Once he was walking with his two disciples, John and Judas, by the shore of the Red Sea, salty water. When they became thirsty, Saint Bessarion took some of its water and prayed over it. The water became sweet, and they all drank of it. Another time, they walked to the wilderness of Scetis and met men who was possessed by demons for the elders to pray over. Because the elders knew that Saint Bessarion despised the glory of men, they did not want to ask him to pray over the sick men, but rather they put the men in the church where the saint usually stood. When Saint Bessarion came into the church and found the man there asleep, he woke him up, and the man rose up healed, and with a son of mine, God worked many signs on his hands. He pleased God and then departed in peace. May his prayers be with us. Amen. 2. On this day also, of the year 1661 AM, Pope Macarius III, 114 Patriarch of Alexandria, departed. He was born in the city of El Mahala El Kubra on February 1872 AD to an old, respectable family. His family was known his family was known by El Cassis family, the family of the peace, which was virtuous and goodly. He grew up from a young age in a religious and pious atmosphere. He received his primary and secondary education in El Mahala El Kubra in Tanta. Even as a young man, he was ascetic, longed for solitary life, and enthusiastic about memorizing the church hymns. When he was 16 years old, he deserted the world and went to the monastery of Anba Biso in Wadi El Natrun in the year 1888 AD to fulfill his desire for asceticism and worship. His name, his name was Monk Abdel Messier. He devoted himself to worship and to the study of the Holy Bible, ecclesiastical books, and Coptic rituals. In a short time, his virtues and righteousness were evident, and his pure life became known to the monks. He was distinguished for transcribing books, and his Coptic and Arabic penmanship was exquisite. He, p- he perfected the Coptic, Coptic artistic decorations. After he was ordained a priest, he spent about 6 years in the pure ascetic life. In the year 1895 AD, Macarius went to the Baramos monastery where he was ordained a priest hegumen by Pope Kyrios V and became his private secretary. The Pope delegated him to teach the Coptic and French languages in the theological school for monks. He intended to ordain him a bishop for Misr, but 2 years after the arrival of Father Abdel Bessay to Cairo, Anba Mikhail, Bishop of Asyut, departed. A delegation from Asyut came to Cairo The chose this honorable hegumen and nominated him to be a metropolitan for Asia. In the beginning, Pope, the Pope did not accept the petition, for he kept Macarius in order to ordain him a bishop for Cairo as an assistant to His Holiness in managing the affairs of the See of Denmark. But when the delegation persisted in their demand, the Pope accepted their petition and ordained Macarius a metropolitan for Asia on July 11, 1897 AD. He called him Macarius, and he was 24 years old. He went to his parish as a young man with no almost but his piety, asceticism, and knowledge. He embarked with the wisdom of the elders and in, in spite of his young age, with his strong will and with the help of the Lord, and on the bringing together the factions of his congregation, establishing the faith. So he maintained the unity of his people and the position and reference of the church, and was quite successful in it. He wa- he was not content with the program that he placed for the church reform, but he also held immense Coptic ref, con- i- an immense Coptic conference in the city of Ashur in the year 1910 AD. In spite of all the objections that rose against it, he also submitted along with Anba Theophilus, then Bishop of Manfalot and Abnub, in the year 1920 AD, a petition to Pope Kyrillus V. This petition contained the required administrative and financial reforms, which indicated his great competence. When Pope Kyrillus V departed in 1928 AD, the people nominated Alba Macarius for the Patriarchal chair to achieve the required reforms, but the circumstances then prevented that. When Pope Ioannis the twe- when Pope Ioannis the the 21st departed, the divine grace permitted that Anba Macarius be enthroned on the throne of Saint Mark. He was ordained patriarch for the See of Saint Mark on Sunday, February 19th, 1944 AD. After his enthronement to the patriarchal chair, Anba Macarius issued on February 22nd, 1944 AD, a historical document. Its main objective was to reform the monasteries and also to promote their monks spiritually and scientifically. He also ordered that the heads of the administrators of the monasteries be accountable. This led, a maj- this led to a major contention between the Holy Synod and the General Coptic Community Council, Majlis El Mili. On June 7, 1944 AD, the Holy Synod submitted a memorandum to the Pope and to the Minister of Justice. They objected to the draft of the marital and personal law for the non-Muslim denominations, for it subverted a canon of the Coptic Orthodox Church as it affected two of the holy sacraments of the Church, which are the sacrament of priesthood and matrimony. These sacraments are cornerstones of the Christian religion and worship. The dispute between the Synod and Council continued, and the attempts of the reconciliation failed. The efforts of the Pope to eliminate the misunderstanding failed also. The Council insisted on interfering in what was not its jurisdiction, and in what was the core jurisdiction of the Holy Synod. As a result, the Pope was compelled to leave the capital and the papal residence for seclusion in Helwan, then went to the eastern monasteries accompanied by the metropolitans. He remained for a while in Saint Antonio Monastery, then went to the monastery of Anbapol. All these painful events had strong impact in all the cycles and the stress every devote in the church. When the Prime Minister knew about the departure of the Pope to the monastery, he worked on the return of the Pope in honor to his chair, and his efforts were successful. Meanwhile, the Coptic Community Council, Maris El Mili, sent a letter to the Pope asking for his return to be able to manage the affairs of the church and promised the cooperation in the needed reforms. Later, the Pope returned for the monastery, and the people received him with joy and reverence. The Holy Synod Convent, with Andrea Macarius presiding on January 1st, 1945, and issued many resolutions which follow. The representation of Ethiopian Church in the Alexandrian Synod, the exchange of delegations between Egypt and Ethiopia, and the establishment of a seminary in Ethiopia, restriction of divorce on the grounds of adultery only, legislation of the family and marital law, rules for nominating and electing the Patriarch that coincide with the canons of the Church and its tradition, establishment of a theological seminary for the monks, formation of a permanent committee to review all the ecclesiastical books, the safeguarding of the endowment funds, and improvement of the official procedures at the administrative offices of the Patriarchate, strict enforcement of the monastic law that was issued on June 3rd, 1937 AD, and the return of all the monks that were living outside the monasteries. Establishment of a record in each church to register the members of each Coptic family, in order to register the baptized, the departed, and the deacons. On June 6, 1945 AD, the Russian Patriarch visited Cairo. Pope Macarius sent a delegation of metropolitans and bishops to be in his reception. Then they exchanged the cordial visits. Once again, a dispute between His Holiness the Pope and the General Coptic Community Council, Majlis el-Mimi, took place. This time, the dispute was not resolved before the Pope took the initiative to defend the position and dignity of his nation, the canons of the churches, and the family marital law for the Muslims in particular. On June 30th, 1945 AD, all the leaders of the non-Muslim denominations in Egypt, headed by the party of the Coptic Orthodox Church, presented a memorandum to the Minister of Justice objecting to the special law that regulated the denominational family affair courts. Also copies were sent. Also copies were sent to the Senate and the House of Representatives. The memorandum focused on the objections to better suit the Christian rites and traditions. The Pope suffered for a severe weakness 2 weeks before his departure that forced him to rest in his residence. On Thursday evening, the 24th of Mesra, 1661 AM, he felt fatigue and he suffered for heart failure. Heart failure. The doctors rushed him to his bedside, trying to save him till dawn. At 9, at 9:15 Friday morning, 31st of August 1945 AD, his spirit soul departed to its creator. On Sunday, the 2nd of September, his pure body was taken to its final resting place in the church with the signs of grief and sorrow. His coffin was placed beside the bodies of the patriarchs, his predecessors. He remained on the patriarchal throne for 1 year, 6 months, and 19 days. May God accept him in the habitations of the righteous. Coincidentally, an earthquake was felt in Cairo at 2:45 p.m. At the time of his burial. Everyone felt it, and the believers were touched. Fanato said the sorrow for the departure of this pure saint. May his praise be with us, and glory be to God forever. Amen.